What's going on, guys? This is Mike with the 1% Mindset Podcast. I hope you guys are doing well. I took a little hiatus, took about a week or two off, went on vacation, celebrated my birthday for a little bit, had a death in the family. So I'm coming to you actually, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see part of the TV in the background have the Kobe Bryant Memorial is getting ready to happen. So, I have it in the background. It's a constant reminder. Recently, first and foremost, before I even get started, I want to say, as usual, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for just continuously being a part of this journey. This journey that I go on with the 1% mindset. Whether it's you guys listening to the podcast, whether that's you purchasing something, being a part of the course, like whatever it is, it's really, really, really appreciated. So I cannot thank you, and can't thank the fans enough. The people who support the podcast, people who support me. If you're listening in, you may have seen a post that I created on my personal page at michael.ducil. And I think this podcast is going to be very important. It's going to be very brief, but it's going to be very and highly effective. Also, for those who don't know, about 2 weeks now, it's a little bit less than 2 weeks ago, my grandmother passed away. And I'll give you guys a little bit of a backstory, which I think is really important, that will set the scene for what I'm about to say. So just understand that I was fortunate enough, because not everyone is, to have my grandmother in my life, basically my entire life. She lived with me for the most part all my life, and when I went to college, she was very close to my mom. So when I went back home to visit in college, I always saw her. So for the better part of 30 plus years, she's played a pretty large role in my life in some capacity, some way, shape, or form. And I think that's important to understand, because when you have something or someone taken away, sometimes you don't know how to properly process, right? And one of the things that stood out to me, or one of the complexes that I learned immediately following that, was that man, I have to be there for my mom and my sister, right? That was the first thing that played in my mind. And in order to effectively do that, I can't be in breakdown. I can't show emotion. Like, I have to say, like, yo, it's gonna be okay, man. She lived a good life. She did all these amazing things. She had 8 beautiful children, obviously, including my mom, and she had, grandkids, me being one of them. She even saw some who had great grandkids, and in the process of greats. I mean, she truly was able to live a fulfilling life, or what appeared to be so. And unfortunately, without going into too many details, but sometimes death can bring the worst out of family, and it was a lot of stuff that happened that I'm not proud of, right? And although it had nothing to do with me, it affected me, it affected my immediate family, and it was tough to watch. Now, in saying that, I want to give you the backstory, but in saying that, I learned very quickly that, hey, I had to be the tough one. I had to be that guy that was there. I can't show emotion, because if I'm in breakdown, then everybody else is in breakdown. And the idea is a celebratory moment of the life she lived, right? And again, ironic this is happening, and I'm doing this podcast on the day of Kobe's memorial. But it's supposed to be a celebratory moment. And I can't be in a space or a place of breakdown and say, hey, man, celebrate. Right? So what I realized is I didn't properly internalize what was happening. And now I'm not saying that when something bad happens, you're supposed to go into this deep depression. I'm not saying that. And nor am I saying you shouldn't grieve. You absolutely should, and will grieve, right? I'm not taking that away. What I'm saying, or what I've noticed, is that because I wanted to make sure that I was the man of the house, right? A complex that I developed after my parents got divorced was, hey, I had to be the man of the house, because I no longer lived with my dad at the time, that I had to be the strong one. And by being strong, it had to look a certain way. And looking a certain way meant not showing emotion, especially not in front of them. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't effectively be there for them showing emotion. That's what I made up in my head. Right? And what I'm telling you is sometimes the best way to be there for someone is to be human. Right? I had to, because I compartmentalized so many things and didn't show emotion to them. On the exterior, I zoned a lot of things out. Right? My lady, I zoned her out. She asked, am I okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. Right? Knowing that internally it bothered me, right? Sometimes I stepped away, or I was in the shower and I just cried, or whatever that looked like, because I didn't properly process the grief that I went through, right? And sometimes you have to internalize it. You have to process what's happening and then go into the mode of celebration for the life that they lived, the person lived, right? You don't have to be this person. Now, here's where the work comes in, right? And I want you to think about this, because this work that I did on me is what you can do on you. I realized that, hey, I was the man of the house early, right? My parents got divorced when I was like 13, give or take, right? I went from living with both parents to living with one, being dependent on my dad to do the manly things as I understood how to grow up. However, after he got divorced, it was just me, my mom, and my sister. I said, man, I have to be the man in the house, and I wasn't quite sure how. So in doing that, I just said, oh, okay, well, it has to look like this. That complex, because that happened, and I developed that at such a young age, 2 decades ago, damn near, to me, I said, in order to be there for the people I love, especially women that I care about, I have to learn how to be the man of the house. I can't say, hey, I'm going through this, or I have any problems, or I have any emotions, because that's not what it looks like. And I developed that back then. Right? How the best way for me to be there for someone was to not show emotion. Now, how crazy does that sound? Right? But again, that was the work that I had to do to realize, like, yo, sometimes you have to grieve a little bit, but then you get to move on. I didn't lose my grandma. She passed away, right? And lived a good life. So in celebrating good moments, it's okay to tear up, but it's also okay to celebrate it. Now, pretending like something is wrong and blocking out other areas of my life, and dismissing other people, obviously incidental, but the root cause of it was because of how I was feeling. Didn't serve anybody. It didn't serve me. It wasn't helpful for me. Right? That was one of the things that I learned. And I'm looking at you, obviously, if you're here on YouTube, or if you're listening in, I want you to think about it. Right? There's some deep rooted things that's happening. I had a conversation with one of my boys a couple days ago, actually, and he ended up telling me, he was in therapy, and he. My post resonated, and he said, he's just been in this place of just trying to find true peace and freedom and happiness, and he told me a couple things, and one of the things he said to me was, and from my PG audience, he was like, man, I haven't messed around with anybody, we're at the end of March. We're in the approaching March. He was like, I haven't messed around with anybody since December, right? And he's like, no, you know me, that's a long time to go, 2 months without having sex. That's what he said. And he said, but one of the things I realized was in doing that, and messing around with all these girls, there was an emptiness that I had, right? And I said, which is a cover up for something that you're missing, an insecurity that you have, that you get to dig deeper with, right? And he said, as he's going to his therapist, they're peeling back layers, right? It's like an onion. You just continue to peel back these layers until you get to the root of it. But I said, that's ultimately what I do, man. I help people get to the root of what their issue is and their happiness, right? How to find happiness and what does it look like. And we conversed, and he's an amazing human being and doing a lot of good work. However, he, behind all what everything looked like, he realized he wasn't happy. He was able to take hold of that and starting to peel back layers to realize, like, man, this is why I'm not happy. I'm not happy because of this. And it was so amazing to watch. And what I want to invite you is to look at areas of your life, right? Like for me, it was my parents getting divorced, me being the man of the house. That was one of the things that affected me. Another one that fed into my insecurities was, my track coach in high school. I quit track in like 11th grade, and at the time I was doing really well, but I just got burnt out, and he called me the biggest waste of talent. So he's like, yo, Mike, you're the biggest waste of talent. Track coach. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it, but I realized that I never wanted to give anybody expectations, right? So if I'm behind the radar, then no one can have expectations and no one can be disappointed in me, right? I set my grandmother's death, and I haven't, I've been fortunate enough to not have too many major immediate family deaths in my lifetime, praise God. But it made me realize, like, yo, it's okay, right? It's okay to be human. Sometimes we try to put on this persona to be there for people, to pretend that we're okay, and we're not. And that's what it looked like for me. It was pretending that things were okay. I read somewhere, actually I heard it somewhere, it was a podcast, I don't remember what podcast it was, but this guy by the name of Peter Crone, who I've been studying immensely, he said, one of, Jesus' guiding principles, is love thy neighbor as you love thyself. The problem is, how many people love themselves? How can you love your neighbor as you love yourself when there's so many people who don't really love themselves how they're supposed to? And imagine what that looks like, how that feels, right? And as you think about it, and as I think about it, it really put things into perspective for me. That, man, like, it's okay to be human, it's okay to grieve, but it's also important to have peace, right? I commend so many people in my family. I'll shout out my mom, because what she did, or one of the things that she did, and she did so well and so eloquently, was, although she was grieving, it's her mom, right? It's my grandmother, but it's her mom. And, she said, you know what, although I'm upset, which she was extremely upset by some particular people in my family, she said, you know what, I'm at peace with it. There's good days in there, there's bad days. There's good days, and there's bad days, but I'm at peace. And I'm asking you, are you at peace with who you are, with what you're going through, with what's happening? Because when you're truly at peace, when you truly have peace, then there's nothing that you're fighting against. That's what's true freedom, right? When you're not resisting anything, that's when there's true freedom. When you're fully present in the moment, that's what true freedom looks like, right? Because you'll never live in your future, ever, and you'll never be present in your past, right? Let that sink in. You'll never live in your future, not ever. And you'll never be present in your past. And when you understand that, you start to live and behave and function knowing that, hey, not only is life now, but I control life. I control how I react, how I operate, how I move. And I won't let or determine what's happening in my current situation, the reality of it, to affect how I move, my mindset. It just doesn't make sense, right? So it's really cool to see, to watch, to be a part of, but it really gave things perspective. So on this beautiful day of the celebration of Kobe Bryant, obviously RIP to him and Gianna and the other 7 victims that lost their lives. I had a good friend, her mom was tragically murdered in Detroit, so RIP to her. I had another friend Um, her cousin was gunned down in Chicago. So RP to her cousin, my grandmother. Like, it's a lot of death that happened around me, and very quickly, right? All within 30 days. It's truly crazy. It's had truly less than all within a 2 to 3 week time frame. But it's understanding, knowing that, you know what, life offers a really good opportunity for you to be present in every moment of your life, because you absolutely never know, and not be in resistance to what is. Not being resistance, really take that all in. So with that being said, man, thank you for this. Thank you for this time. Thank you for the love that you guys continuously show me day in and day out. I 100% appreciate it. And with that being said, we're going to get back to our normal routine of every Monday. If anything changes, I'll let you know. But for now, this is the podcast. It's up a little late. It's 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. So I hope to get that to you within the next, by 3 p.m. Eastern Standard. And I will be consistent again, obviously, unless something else changes. So with that being said, love you guys. Peace. Take care.